Thank you.
There we go.
Wow, we're getting more attendees than yesterday. Great. All right, it's 11:30 now, and I'll just say a few words before we get into our Waterloo presentation. So hi, everyone. My name's Andrea, and I am very happy to be in charge of this year's Stuco team and that we were able to pull off this event. Very exciting. So today we have Waterloo at 11:32, which will start in just a minute. And then at 11:53, we have UBC. So essentially what I ask of attendees is that any question you have, as long as it's appropriate, please ask in the Q&A chat. I ask that you do not type any questions for panelists in the regular Zoom chat. Please type it in the chat that directly says Q&A. Otherwise, I think that's all for now. Thank you all for coming. So first off, we're going to have our Waterloo panelists introduce themselves, and we have 3 lovely guests today. So first, I'm going to ask Daniel to introduce himself.
So, hey guys, my name is Daniel. I graduated 2.5 years ago in 2018. And right now I'm a 3rd-year computer science student at Waterloo. So in terms of my past internships, I've done 2 web development full stack internships in some Toronto startups, and next term I'm going to be working on automation engineering at Tesla. So yeah, that's a little bit about myself.
Wow, thank you, Daniel. That seems really cool. And Tara, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hey guys, I'm Tara. I graduated from PG in 2015. I attended Waterloo in systems design engineering, and I actually just graduated earlier this year. So I'm now working full time. I went back to my 6th co-op internship at Splunk, and so now I work as a product manager.
That's really cool. Nice. Thank you. And lastly, we have Tony. You want to introduce yourself?
Yep. Hey everyone, Tony here. So I graduated from Point Grey in 2016. I went to Waterloo, actually kind of ping-ponged between different programs, was kind of trying to discover what I wanted to do. I actually started in double degree math and business, and then I went to computer science and business double degree, and then I went to computer science. And then basically, yeah, in the past, did a couple co-ops. One of them was at this blockchain company called Consensus. And then this was back in 2018. And then that actually kind of sparked a large change in my life because I then went on to kind of found my own startup and then got a little bit of funding earlier this year. Our startup raised 2.45 million for a seed round, and then kind of we're just I'm working full time now as the CEO of the startup. We're kind of doing stuff in the Bitcoin space, Bitcoin finance, and kind of, I guess, technically dropped out of Waterloo. So a little bit of a unique case, but I'm happy to chat about anything Waterloo related as well.
Wow, that is really fascinating. Wow, great for you. All right, so now that all the panelists have introduced themselves, to all attendees, feel free to start asking questions in the Q&A chat that you have for our panelists. But for now that we don't have questions at the moment, I'm just going to let the attendees ask their questions, but I will ask some default questions first. All right, so I think this is a question that everyone has their different perspective on. In terms of all 4 years, but mainly freshman year, how was your workload? Let's start with Tony.
Yeah, so I think workload was a big kind of shock, I guess, a little bit. I guess I came in kind of to Waterloo, kind of having spoken to a few other Waterloo students that you can expect to kind of be working quite a bit, and especially like in the engineering department and as well as the math department, where computer science and math is part of the math faculty. You can probably be expecting to work quite a bit. Lots of late night study sessions, especially close to exam season. And whatnot. So kind of like depends on like, of course, like there's a lot of it depends on like how much effort you put into it at the end of the day. There's always kind of people there to support you and whatnot. But yeah, it can get pretty hectic sometimes. Definitely lots of late nights.
Wow, I see. Thank you. And Tara, how was your workload?
In first year, it was a lot, and I don't think it was more like just the courses or like the number of courses, and mostly just like the learning curve. I felt like I didn't take any AP courses when I was in high school, and so I think there was just like a bit of a jump there for me personally. But I mean, it was all manageable. The program, as well as like just like peers in general, were super supportive, and I think that like really helped me get through. And as you kind of progress in engineering, like through upper years, you're able to kind of manage your workflow, like your workload a bit more. So it all turned out.
That's great. Thank you. And Daniel.
I think, yeah, just like Tony and Tara mentioned, the workload is going to be a huge jump from your high school life, but I think it's definitely manageable. And I think one thing to take note of is because Waterloo has this co-op program, if you do chose to enroll in it, that actually you have to take into account that is going to take up a lot of your time when you're working on like your schoolwork, and you have to start balancing between work life and just basically university student life pretty early on. And I think that's a special aspect of Waterloo, I guess.
Great, thank you, panelists. And now we can get into some of the attendee questions. I think Tara mentioned this already, but do you guys live on campus or not? And maybe an add-on I can do is, do you live on campus or not? And do you recommend living on campus? We can start with Tara.
So as I mentioned in the chat, I lived at NKV first year, really enjoyed it. I basically, a lot of the friends that I made were actually through res, and so would highly recommend. And I think that no matter what residence you're in, like you're gonna meet people. And the other fun one that I heard from a lot of friends in my year were V1 as well. So definitely would recommend for first year.
Nice. Daniel?
Yeah, I think campus life for me, basically like living at campus basically allows you to basically meet a lot more people rather than living off campus, as mentioned. And it's just overall really nice, really nice experience being able to live with a bunch of your floor mates, a bunch of your roommates in a group environment. And whether be it studying or like, partying late at night, it's just nice to have people around. Yeah.
Cool. Great. And what about Tony?
Yeah, definitely agree with Tara and Daniel. I think it's a good opportunity, especially as you're entering into a new environment, to make some good friends that will probably last you the duration of your university career. It's when you're choosing your residence, obviously just like be conscious of like what kind of style of residence you want. There's ones where it's literally just you and another person in the same room with no kitchen and stuff like that. Dorm style, I think it's called. And then basically there's ones that are more kind of like have kitchens and all kind of stuff. So make sure you guys do your research into like which res you kind of want to see yourself living in, and whatnot before you kind of go get into everything. So yeah.
Thanks, guys. Yes. Overall, Waterloo sounds really great. Okay. Next question. How is Waterloo's co-op program different from those of other universities? I guess whoever has done co-op can answer.
I think all three of us have done some form of co-op. So yeah, I guess I can start. From my knowledge, like what co-op program is definitely a large reason for why I decided on going to Waterloo. Basically, you have 5 to 6 different placements that you can go into. It's usually like your kind of sequence depends on which program you're in. You can have school work, or you have two school terms in a row and then one work term. It's very flexible typically. Usually, I think engineering might be a little bit less flexible, but if you're in like math faculty, it's usually more flexible. It's a great opportunity for you to kind of obviously get out into the workforce, into like kind of a get to kind of understand, okay, this is an industry that I might be passionate about moving forward, to work in for the long term. And then of course, like, especially when you're closer to the end of your like co-op terms, some of those co-op terms might turn into full-time offers. And then the best thing for you is that you would have gotten a chance to actually work in that environment, to know that, okay, this would be something that suits me and I would love to kind of be in that kind of environment. So I'd say overall, it's definitely one of the biggest pros for Waterloo, and great opportunity to have like a good amount of work experience before you graduate. Yeah.
Cool. And what about Tara?
Yeah, so I think with engineering specifically as well, there's definitely like a lot of encouragement from the program itself, since it's a requirement for you to do co-op, and so I think it pushed us to find jobs that not only like got us to try out a specific career, but also try out different companies. And I think a lot of Waterloo has a huge, like, I guess, community around not only co-ops, but startups, businesses, and encouraging companies to post jobs on our like internal job site. And so I think that because so many people at Waterloo do co-op, there's just a much bigger pool of resources to pull from, and everyone around you is going to be usually doing the same thing. So, you're not alone in finding a job and being under that pressure, and professors are usually very like understanding of like interviews and all of that. So I would say that was co-op program, although like I obviously never went to UBC or anything like that, because of the mass numbers, it's just a huge community. And you'll definitely get co-op experiences if you're in one of the co-op programs with required co-ops.
Thank you, Tara. And Daniel?
Yeah, like Tony and Tara mentioned, Waterloo's co-op program is definitely a place where the university really shines. And yeah, just because it's a target school in a lot of SF areas and basically the greater Toronto area, you're basically like guaranteed to get a lot of job postings for your program even in your first year. I think one key difference I would like to say is that the co-op program can start especially early, compared to other universities. Like for some engineering programs and math programs, you will be basically looking for a co-op job 4 months into your first year, and that can be a little bit daunting at times. But it's also a really great step for you just to step up and learn to be independent a little bit. You'll be like doing. I think as a Waterloo student, because of the co-op program starting so early on, you really get to mature as an adult, I guess, in a sense, really early on, in the sense that you have to do your own taxes, have to apply for jobs while balancing your workload, etc. So I think it's really, really valuable in that sense. Yeah.
Ooh, thank you. Sounds great. Next question. Ooh, how is it like to live somewhere different and on your own? We can start with Daniel.
For me, speaking on personal, just personally, I've always lived with my parents before I went to university. So living alone was definitely a challenge at first. I didn't really know how to cook, but luckily I lived in a dorm style, so I had a cafeteria right downstairs where I could buy food from. And living with a roommate was definitely something. It was very interesting because my roommate and I have been like really good friends for the entirety of high school, and we actually lived in the same room in the first year. But you realize that there's a lot more I guess nuances that can come up, and a lot of yeah, basically you have to take care of a lot of your take care a lot better about yourself and realize that you need to be doing a lot more as living an independent person. And yeah, I guess that's it for me.
Thanks, Daniel. And what about Tara?
Yeah, similar experience. I'd only lived with my parents before, so moving out of the house and to a different province, like you definitely learn how to take care of yourself. But I really enjoyed meeting my roommates and people on my floor and in res, and so I think like that support group and meeting new people just kind of filled in those gaps. And obviously there's a difference between living with your parents and living with your friends, but a lot of my friends' parents called me homeless and took me in at Thanksgiving and all that sort of thing. And and I still talk to my parents like through video or FaceTime. So yeah, I think overall like different but great experience still.
Thank you. And what about Tony?
Yeah, agree with all the above. And like, I guess like one extra point is that, if you're in a co-op program and, you have fortune of being hired by, some company that might not be in the Waterloo or Toronto area, then you might have to then move to another spot. And then, there's definitely like, it's definitely like a bit of a process to get used to that. And sometimes, especially if you're like Tara and Daniel getting hired by like a SF-based company, then you have to worry about visas and you have to worry about kind of finding a place to rent in SF and that kind of stuff. So it can be quite a bit of overhead to think about that, especially if you're a co-op student. But overall, of course, it's very kind of beneficial in the long term for your career. So yeah.
Thanks, Tony. That sounds really great. Next question. What was your average when you got actually? Okay, yeah, we'll answer this question. Sorry, I just gotta be careful of certain questions. All right, what was your average when you got admitted into Waterloo CS? You don't have to, I mean, you may not remember exactly, but if there's a range, maybe that would be good. Tony?
Yeah, it was around I think probably like around the 96, 97 range, I would say. Yeah.
Nice. And Tara?
I wasn't in CS, but mine was much lower. I think it was honestly below 90 if I remember correctly. So very different.
Thank you. And Daniel?
Mine was also in the 96, 97 range, but I think even if you have a low average, that's not the main determining factor of, I mean, that's not the only determining factor of whether you will get in or not. So
Example
you should
A.
always have confidence in yourself, even if your grades are low. Yeah.
Thank you. All right. And the next question. I'm guessing if you guys took APs, are APs that crucial when applying to uni? Daniel.
I think AP courses definitely give you an insight of what university courses or how they'll be structured and what kind of material they can expect for them to teach. But I think if you're not applying to US universities, AP courses just basically become transfer credits. So as far as I know, back in first year for me, you were able to select, for all the AP courses you received a certain mark in, you were allowed to transfer them into credits. And depending on the faculty you're in, some courses might not be able to transfer into like the credits. Say, for example, for the computer science program, APCS actually is not able to transfer into any CS credit. And yeah, and I think it's definitely useful though.
Thank you. And Tara, what about you? Do you think it was useful?
I didn't take any AP courses personally, and I think like in high school, I was just like more sports oriented, I guess. And I think it would have helped if I had additional knowledge like in first year, because it wouldn't have been such a high learning curve for me. But I even my friends with AP courses couldn't actually transfer them for engineering specifically in my program. And so it was more just additional knowledge to help you out with like your 1A and 1B courses rather than like transferring credits. And so, I mean, I didn't take them and it turned out fine. So you can definitely get by.
Thanks. And Tony, what about your AP past?
Yeah, I think I agree with the above. Like I think like it's not like crucial. I think the best thing it did help for me was just like getting a kind of like a foundation of like, okay, what kind of stuff we'll cover in like first year calculus, for example, especially if when I was in like the math faculty. So that definitely helps and kind of like gives you like a leg up maybe on some other folks as well. But it's not essential, and especially if you're a fast learner, it's definitely not a big deal in my opinion. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And all right, because attendees, there's no more questions in the Q&A chat. I'm going to ask some more default questions. If you guys have any more questions for the panelists, please ask now, as we are going to end Waterloo in around 3 minutes. Okay, so one more question if no one else has questions. I think you said so in your guys' introductions, but overall, what are you thinking for yourself in the future in terms of career, etc.? Tony.
For my career, pretty I'm on the startup journey right now. It's definitely a bit of a grind, but really enjoying it, and really like kind of like Waterloo was a great kind of part of that journey, because it was where I met my co-founder. It was where I first got exposed to blockchain and Bitcoin. Actually, like you guys are one of the founder of Ethereum, which is the second largest crypto currency right now, actually came from Waterloo. It was another Waterloo dropout, and so that's Waterloo's been a big part of that. And so I'm really happy to be kind of where I am right now, leading this company, and excited to kind of keep working in the Bitcoin space and whatnot. So yeah.
Thanks, Tony. And what about Tara?
Yeah, I mean, I just graduated and now I'm working full time for one of my last co-ops. I think Waterloo really helped me meet like the people that I am today, not only for like friendships, but also people that connected me to jobs that I got. And I really like the co-op program that allowed me to kind of get into the job that I am right now. I work as a product manager for a software company called Splunk, and it's in San Francisco. So I got to travel a bit while I was in school, and I think like in the next couple of years, I'll continue to like meet new people and try out new things. I think probably stay at this job for a bit, but then try other companies. And I think that with the skills I've learned, I'll have the opportunity to transfer jobs or move to whatever I want in the future. So I'm really grateful for that.
Thanks, Tara. And what about Daniel?
For me, I'm still in third year and this is going to be my third co-op. So I'm still kind of in the process of exploring what I really want to do in the future. So I guess in the past, I've done some web stuff and I'll be doing some automation stuff here and there. And I just feel like Waterloo as a whole has, it's really inspiring to see people around you from first year basically go up in the second year and third year and doing all these kinds of different cool jobs. And yeah, it's pretty inspiring to see. And you definitely get to meet a lot of connections along the way and a lot of people that can help you shape out your future in a sense. And I think that's really cool.
Thank you guys so much. And that concludes our Waterloo portion. So panelists, I mean attendees, sorry, attendees, we are recording this webinar and it will be posted to YouTube later where if you weren't listening for like 1 second, then you can come back and see what Tara, Tony, and Daniel have said. But for now, we're going to sign them off and thank you guys so much for coming. All right. Thank you. Bye. And okay, next we got UBC, and this is Tiffany Lee, Evin Lee, and Greg Ng. So if you three could turn on your cameras and mics, that would be great.
Hello.
Hi there.
Hello.
All right, so to all attendees, these are our lovely UBC panelists, and I'm going to get them to introduce themselves. So let's start with Greg.
Oh, hi, my name is Greg, and I'm in my second year at UBC, and hopefully my major is English with a minor in psychology. And yeah.
Nice, thank you. And Tiff and Evan.
Hi, my name is Tiffany. I'm in first year at UBC and I'm in the Media Studies and BMM dual degree program.
That's business management, for those who don't know.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Evin. I am also at UBC, my first year, and I am studying engineering.
Great, thank you guys so much. So for all attendees, you're allowed to put any questions you have into the Q&A chat. And while we wait for those to get in there, I'm just going to ask some default questions. All right, this is definitely an overall big question for lots of people. For the applications process, did you have to do a personal profile and any advice for that personal profile? Let's start with Tiffany or Evan.
Sorry, we're trying to unmute ourselves. You can go first. So I think you have a more extensive personal profile process, right?
So yes, we of course had to do a personal profile. I applied for solder as my second choice, which by the way is not a good idea to do. But so I went through the solder application process as well. And advice for it is to honestly be humble and for like, just realize that you've got more experience than you think you might have. And then that you definitely learned something from all of your experience. Like there has been a learning curve and you just kind of gotta dig deep into it and realize that, think about how you've grown as a person from the beginning of that experience to now. And because that's what's the most valuable and that's what they're looking for in the process of going through your application.
Yeah, I think like the thing you said about finding a balance between being humble and then also not underselling yourself is really important because the last thing you want is for them to feel like there's nothing there, even though that's like that's obviously not true, right? So don't downplay your experiences, but also kind of frame them in a way that speaks to your character more so than like the titles you had. Also plan early. That's the biggest advice because I know applications, they roll out like around September. And I know that like grade 12 is hella stressful. So just make sure you're planning your time wisely. Like Tiff and I, we like term 1 was stressful to the point where like both of us decided not to do the early admissions process. I don't know.
Oh, and yeah, I feel like that's something that you could think about is that early admission process is not everything.
Yeah.
Like, don't think of it so highly as in like, oh no, that's the only thing we're gonna think
It's
about.
the end all be all. It's not. Like a week before the early admissions deadline was like it was over, I didn't feel that confident about my application. So that's why I decided to do the just the regular admission thing. So it really depends on how confident you feel about your own application too.
Thanks, Tiff and Evan. And Greg?
Yeah, that was really good advice. I also had to do a personal profile. My advice for that is just be honest, but not too honest, right? So there's always an in between with what like how you sell yourself to others. What they're looking for is, you know, a well-written like profile, and like what Tiffany and Evan said, like if it's not ready, don't worry. Don't like early application is not everything. I did early application because I prepared very well in advance. I think one really good advice is like start early and write bits and pieces of it like over time. The best thing to do when you write is like to read over something and like read, edit, and complete that process. It's a very long process, but it will get your writing like very nice and concise and very like well written. So that's probably my best advice. Yeah, just be yourself, be honest, sell yourself, but don't like tell too much about yourself too. Yeah.
Thank you, guys. And next question from one of our attendees. And you are okay to answer in however way you like. You don't have to go over any big comfort zones. So what were your stats and extracurriculars? Greg.
Stats, I assume like grades. Is that is that right? Okay, so my stats, I graduated with a 93 average, and that's very high for like applying to arts. So if you apply to arts with that average, I'm pretty sure you have a pretty good chance. But it's also supported by your personal profile, of course. So I know other people had like much lower averages, but like a strong personal profile, and they also look highly at that too. My extracurriculars, I did, let's see, I did piano. I did lots of volunteering for my church. They also look at like volunteer experience, work experience. So that's always something good to add to your personal profile. I also did a few sports, but not sure if they look at that. But yeah, that's what I did. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Greg. And what about Tiffany or Evan?
I don't even remember. If I'm being honest, I don't even remember like my final GPA when I left high school. But I think when you're applying to something that's known for being competitive, like engineering, I would say aim for something, or like no, I can't say that. That's like no, because it's like it really depends on like your personal profile as well. But for me, I think I had a final average of 97, around like 97, 98. But yeah. And then in terms of extracurriculars, I think like beginning of high school, I definitely started out with a lot. And then like over grade 11 and 12, I narrowed it down to a few things that I really enjoyed. And I talked a lot about those in my personal profile. And similar to Greg, it was just volunteering around school. I know like I was on student council and there's this Club Project Zero that I was really invested in. And then outside of school, I just had like a couple of side projects I was working on with friends. And like one of them was just putting on this conference for other students who might be interested in STEM and like getting speakers to like talk about their industry experience. I thought that was really cool. And ultimate, which I don't think UBC really cared about. But yeah.
I think I ended the term with around a 95, but like what Greg said, it's like I applied for arts or media studies, which like that's already great. Anywhere in the 90s zone is absolutely like already great. And I think the one thing that I also kind of realized that I needed to learn was that like, yeah, average, but at the same time, like I got an 89 in AP Calc. And then I was like, for a long time, I was like, oh my God, oh no, an 89, that's gonna drag down my average kind of a thing. But then like when you submit all your marks in, I realized it made zero difference. So like if you're talking about like stats and like courses specifically too, like focus on the ones that you're gonna apply with, like know the ones that your program is obviously gonna look at first. And for extracurriculars, yeah, I did very similar things to Evin. Like I was on student council, and then like I was on the MSIEPS group for like all the the women empowering events. And then I also worked outside of school. I can't think of a lot of things right now, but ultimately like very similar to Evin as well, is that by the time I hit like grade 10, 11, 12, I've narrowed it down to only a few certain things that I would rather do well, rather than trying to tip my toes into everywhere and then write all about it all on my personal profile. Because yeah, ultimately you want to do the things that show your character the most and the things that you're truly passionate about, because that's going to show through in your writing.
Even though it's cliche, but it's true.
Thank you guys. That sounds really great. Next question. What is the hardest thing to adjust to when first coming to UBC? All right, Tiff or Evin?
Okay, definitely for us is online learning. Like we didn't have any of the experience that a lot of first years get for when they first enter UBC. So I think that's something that Greg is really going to be able to answer to.
The difference between,
yeah, I don't know about whether like school is going to be online starting September and whether many of you guys would be having school online, but definitely for us was adjusting to online and also adjusting to like workload, adjusting to it definitely is a different type of stress. I can't even describe it. It's such a different type of stress from high school.
Yeah.
And I think the one really good thing that came out of it, at least for me, was that I realized to really like what I'm learning and really, really find myself being able to apply to things that I'm learning out of my courses. And I think that's the one great thing about being able to choose your courses.
I think that also, like, if you enjoy what you're doing, like the 60% you get back from like a project or something, or like a not so good outcome, it starts to matter less, right? Because you're like, it's just about, like, you start to realize that it's just a bad outcome. For me, it was definitely a big jump. Like, I think in high school, like a lot of people, it's like you can get by with a little bit of studying and you'll be okay. Like, as long as you studied, you know you're going to be okay for a test or exam, right? For uni, it's like sometimes you can study your butt off, but you know, the outcome still might not be that great. And over the last 4 months, I realized that, like, whereas in high school, it's like, how close are you to 100? In uni, it's really how close are you to the class average, like relative to others. Yeah.
Definitely adjusting to the whole idea of grades is like the biggest thing. And then I see Greg nodding. And then yeah, and I'm sure like Greg has written a lot of stuff because, you know, pursuing an English major is a lot of writing, but like definitely for like my program as well, planning things ahead has been the biggest thing I've learned. Like in high school, all I did was like last minute stuff. And like, I'm not saying that as an advice, don't do things last minute. But like definitely planning papers out way in advance. Cause like Greg said, once you read back on them, you realize like, oh, okay, that didn't sound the way I want it to sound. And then like Evin can speak more to the whole like engineering stuff, but definitely for like anyone pursuing arts, like just write things ahead of time. Cause that's the one biggest mistake that I did in high school.
Thanks, guys. And yeah, Greg, what's the hardest thing to adjust to when you came to UBC?
All right, so in my first year, the biggest thing, yeah, is definitely adjusting the marks and reading. Okay, reading is like extremely important in university because everything, like all the content for your classes will be in either a book or a textbook, and you have to read that like as fast as you can to catch up with the material. You miss a chapter and then it's like, oh, like the stress that they were talking about, it just builds up and like it doesn't stop. So like my biggest advice and like something I still try to learn even in second year is like keep up with the readings. It'll be your best friend. Like learn how to read fast, efficiently, and learn how to pick out like the right information, because some stuff is like not covered in the class, so you have to pay attention. So it's a lot of like detail, but reading fast. That was a huge change because, you know, class notes in high school is just like given to you, right? Everything, the teachers pick out the info for you, right? When you're reading a textbook, you gotta like, oh, like filter out like what's worth reading, what's worth like keeping, and what's like, you know, less important. But yeah, definitely reading is especially in arts, it's essential. So I'm still trying to learn how to do that. And definitely adjusting the marks, because like I know like I would be getting like high marks like writing in high school, and then I got my like first like 70, and I was like sweating. I was so like upset. And then I realized like, oh, like the average, like everyone's average is like 70 too. So like the thing is like the averages are a lot lower, but like everyone else in the class is getting that same average. So don't worry if your grade is like low, because they do a thing called like scaling, and like they scale you according to classmates sometimes, or according to like what grade everyone gets. So I look at it as like, oh, I'm like average. So that's good enough for me. But yeah, for definitely if school is online, second year was definitely a struggle, because it was so different, and it's like as if I was in a new learning environment. So I was like doing university again online, and that was a huge difference too. And that was probably the hardest thing I had to adjust to this year. Um, Regarding papers, like yeah, definitely write ahead, plan ahead, find a system that works best for you. I know people write differently. Um, and so, yeah, just prepare an outline. You know, they tell you in high school, write an outline before you write an essay. That's like extremely important. So yeah, just focus on organization and stuff like that, and you should be okay.
Thanks, Greg. That's pretty useful for me too. All right. I think we can answer this question very briefly, but what exactly could we talk about in our personal profile? Could we talk about courses that are kind of extracurricular, like music, band, yearbook, etc.? So I'm guessing if you guys took music or band or yearbook, do those still count as extracurriculars? Greg.
I think so. Yes. I definitely put that on my personal profile. I was very involved in the music program. Um, and yes, I had lots of community service for my church. And at school in the club. So you can definitely put like club volunteer experience, music involvement. They like long-term commitment, like to a certain activity. And so if you show like commitment in one area, they'll go like, oh, this person's committed, right? So yes, you could definitely put that on your personal profile.
Thanks, Greg. And what about Tiff or Evan when it comes to yearbook, band, drama, etc.?
I think you can definitely put that on your personal profile. It really depends on how you frame the whole thing, right? It's like as long as you're showing that you learned something from it, like you grew from it. It could be like small growth, big growth. It doesn't really matter. But as long as it shows something about you as a person, like you can honestly put anything.
Yeah. Like as an example, I did theater company, and then so I wrote about like being able to, you know, step out onto a stage and being able to perform and like present yourself in front of a lot of people. And then that shows like, yeah, long-term growth, long-term commitment.
Yeah.
Exactly like Greg said. And also while we're on the topic of like what can and you cannot put on extracurriculars, you can definitely even put things that like don't have a specific label on it. Like say you take care of your younger sister like every day after school, that counts, because that shows that you're committed to something, and it shows that you found yourself and like somewhere, and then you've learned something from it. Yeah. So even things like that, things that you're just committed to.
Thanks, guys. Okay, I'm not quite sure if you guys are able to answer this, but do you know if the ELAS test for international students is a key factor of their application? If any of you have any knowledge of that.
I am not sure, but I'm sure you can find it on the website. I can even dig it up for you and link it in the chat if they want.
All right, thank you. Yeah. So for international student questions, I think we can easily come back to you on that later. Okay, next question. Have you spent a lot of time doing assignments? And because of assignments, how have your sleep schedules been? Tiffany Evin.
Sorry, we were trying to search it up. Man, that is, it really fluctuated during the term. I guess like I'll talk about like how I kind of slept throughout the term and like my workload. But at the beginning, I remember getting all our like course outlines, and I was so overwhelmed. I'm like, they expect like for engineering, you had to take 6 courses, 7 for some people who don't have credits. And so like normally a course load of 4 is like advised. 5 is even, you know, a bit like you can juggle it, but it's definitely more work. So when I saw that I had like, it was like 2 physics classes, you know, 2 computer science classes, 2 math classes, sorry, not 1 math class and then another words class, I was really overwhelmed. And I think that feeling of being overwhelmed and anxious for everything continued for a month. But then after that month, after we had some midterms, I realized I really just need to step back and stop treating uni as if it was a sprint where I had to like get everything done into the best quality I could. And after that 1 month, I realized that I needed to take care of myself. Because Tiffany knows, like for that 1 month, I was so anxious to the point that my appetite was gone. I wasn't prioritizing sleep. And then like I think you saw like a transition, right? Where like I started to take care of myself. I started to prioritize sleep to the point where like even if I didn't have something done, I would sleep and then I wake up early in the morning if I could. Or like even if I did it, that's fine too, because tomorrow is also another day. And the work is always gonna be there, but like I need sleep. I think bottom line is just I need sleep. I need to take care of myself. And everything else will kind of follow after like you prioritize those 2 things.
Yeah, and just really quickly, like I think the biggest thing from these last few months is the fact that your profs don't tell you anything.
Yeah.
Like especially on Canvas, they hide things everywhere. You don't know where things are, you know. Let's like they don't hold your hand through any of it, and they'll remind you every week when there's discussions to do, and you got to reply to someone else's discussion, and then because it's a weekly thing, and I think that also may just be an online learning thing, just because like they're trying to make up for all the marks and stuff. But definitely, there are going to be more. There is more things to like think about, especially since like profs like to put different things for different classes at a bunch of different places. Yeah, but in terms of sleep, yeah, Evin like went through some hella sleep cycle stuff that I don't even know what was going on. But for me, definitely, I started to realize how important my quality like of work became when I got more sleep. Like definitely noticed a change in how much more I was able to connect with the concept, how much more I was able to write, and how much more I was able to focus just because I got 8 hours of sleep. And in fact, before I realized, like being on a full like 8 hours of sleep made me also more efficient too.
It also feels good. You're not running on coffee, which is something that like, yeah, it's really great about having enough sleep as opposed to high school. Or we didn't know that.
And Greg will answer that question too, and then that will conclude our UBC conference.
Oh, sorry, I was muted still. For assignments, yeah, you get behind and then you stress. But yeah, uni workload is like can be very stressful if you don't plan. Definitely, sometimes it can be avoided. Like the stress can be avoided if you like plan ahead and like have time. Because like something about university is your schedule is very flexible. Right? If you like have you could pick what days you have courses on, and so like you can plan around like what classes you have and like stuff like that. Sometimes you'll have free days, and so what will you do with that free day, right? Or what will you do with that time in between? Like you have an hour between class, like what are you gonna do? Are you gonna eat? Because it's very important to eat, right? For me, like I was very stressed this semester just because everything was online, and I was still trying to figure out like how to navigate all the assignment tabs and like discussion tabs, because I had like 5 discussions and I couldn't remember which one to post to. So like within that hour, like that was supposed to be devoted to lunchtime, I would be like trying to figure out like, oh, like what am I gonna do next, right? And so sometimes I wouldn't eat lunch. And like I'm very thankful to live at home, and my mom would just give me food. So thank you to my mom. But yeah, like plan time, because if you're like me, I'm still learning how to be organized and like figure out courses and stuff like that. So my sleeping schedule is pretty wild. So sometimes I sleep late and sometimes I sleep early. Thankfully, I chose classes that were later in the day, so I could sleep in. So it might be something to consider. Like if you want a class that's later in the day, then you pick a class later in the day. And also, that goes into course picking too. Like there's a lot of planning that goes into university. You look at your courses and you go like, oh, am I gonna wake up in time for that course? Am I going to like be devoted to like that? Or do I want to have a later class? Like, so you have a lot of flexibility. But even through the picking course process, you have to think like many steps ahead. So that's all I got. Just organized scheduling, something I'm still learning. And sleep is very helpful. I need more sleep, but I would perform much better if I had more sleep. But it is what it is.
Thank you so much, Greg. All right, attendees and panelists, that concludes today's virtual university panel conference. We may have even more sessions like this in the future, maybe more towards the end of the school year, but thank you guys so much for coming. And attendees, please get to your online classes now.